ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce you our esteemed panel for today's next session on SMEs, 2023 trends, implementing smart business, innovation, inclusivity, and sustainability through future cities. Cities across the world are facing numerous environmental, social, and economic challenges. The need of the hour is to transform these cities into smart, resilient, sustainable, and inclusive urban spaces. The integration of SMEs' future cities trends is one of the 2023-2024 SMEs trends. SMEs are competing to offer innovative services within future cities through providing solutions to socio-economic problems, such as optimizing transportation flows, real-time city information, designing urban planning projects, and the Internet of Things. This session aims to discuss the new trends and tracks of investment for SMEs, including the Smart Cities track, where many SMEs are directing their investments towards smart businesses and digital technologies to serve the development of smart cities. So we have with us Anna Tutova, CEO of Coins Telegram, as our moderator for the session. I welcome her immediately on stage. We have with us also our esteemed panelists, including Shadi Atshan, General Director of Leaders International, Rachel Sumi Cho, Chief Business Officer of MEISA, Miguel Eiras Antunes, Public Sector Infrastructures, Transportation and Regional Government, Central Europe Leader and Smart Cities and Urban Transformation Global Leader at Deloitte. Karim Gad, Country Focal Point at Deutsche Investitionen für Beschäftigung. And Ahella El Saban, Co-Founder and Chief Commercial Officer at Exits MENA. So, we look forward to an enlightening discussion and insights from all of our esteemed panelists. So, Anna, the floor is yours.
Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here today in Abu Dhabi at annual investment meeting and to discuss such important topics as investments of small and medium enterprises to make sustainable future and smart cities. And small and medium enterprises are always well known as to be quite agile and innovative in comparison to big corporations. And additionally, small and medium businesses form 90% of the businesses worldwide, and as well provide 2 in 3 new jobs. This supports the livelihoods of over 2 billion people. And today we will talk about different type of investments into new digital technologies for the future of smart cities, like IoT, AI, green cities, and etc. But let's start first with a brief introduction of our speakers and what they do and in what their businesses are involved. So let's start with Shadi.
So my name is Shadi Atshan. I'm the General Director of Leaders International. Basically, Leaders is an organization that operates in the Middle East and North Africa. We're providing support for SMEs and startups in the field of economic development. We're focused on innovation economy through our offices in Palestine, Jordan, Tunisia, and Belgium. Our work, again, is focused on, it's divided between startups at 20-30% of the load of work and SMEs. A part of the load that we're doing is a project that is focused on SMEs for smart cities, and maybe I can elaborate after we start the discussion. So.
Thank you, Miguel.
Hello everybody, my pleasure to be here. So I work for Deloitte, everybody knows Deloitte, so it's the biggest professional service organization in the world. For us, the topic of cities is, I would say, seen as a big priority because of in cities there we have 70% of greenhouse emissions, 80% of GDP, and with the topic of the climate targets and climate change, we need to go through cities, and that's why making them smarter and more sustainable is more and more relevant. On that note, we have around 4,000 people worldwide working now in more than 1,000 cities in the world, and we want to have a role as an ecosystem enabler, super connector, and really help to co-build solutions with partners that really have an impact in our lives and on the sustainability of our planet. And it's a bit on that our global teams have been working on. And it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Karim.
Thank you. My name is Karim. Is it working? No? My name is Karim Gad. I represent Investing for Employment. It's a wholly owned subsidiary of KfW Development Bank. I'm the country focal point of Egypt. We basically provide grant facilities for entities or projects that help in creation of job opportunities in 8 developing African markets. That being said, and in relation to the smart cities, we also provide infrastructure finance or infrastructure grants for governments in order to enable those smart cities in a more agile format and expand the horizon for the private sector companies to expand even further.
Thank you. Ahela.
Hello. So hi, I'm Ahela Sabon. I'm the co-founder and vice chairman for Exits MENA. We work closely with SMEs across the region and startups to help them to become more investment ready and more capable to get investments, whether it's through direct investments or fundraising or get acquired or merged and so on. And one of the main elements that we work closely with is to understand what are the gaps that SMEs face in becoming investment ready, whether it's through digital, whether it's through financing, whether it's through their infrastructure and so on, because this leads to the ultimate goal, which is having a smart city that's built through the SMEs and inspiring.
Thank you, and let me lastly introduce more myself. My name is Anna Tutova. I'm originally from Ukraine, and I'm co-founder of Coins Telegram. We have a news media company. We are mostly focused on digital assets and blockchain space, and as well we see a lot of applications of blockchain as well for the smart cities, specifically as well for the supply chain solutions. So we have a news website, YouTube channel, and PR marketing agency, and we help tech companies and different SMEs with their exposure in media and telling their story to the wider audience. And additionally, I'm advisor at IT startup called Alliance API. They're building a connected product called Connected Plus. It's a SaaS API solution for the management and connecting and analyzing of IoT data on a single platform. So let's start with our discussion. Of course, there are quite a lot of challenges in starting building the smart cities and etc. So what are the major challenges do you see the smart cities face to build the resilient, sustainable and to become resilient, sustainable and inclusive, and what's your experience? Let's start with Shadi.
Okay, maybe I'll refer to 2 problems that I can witness and see that they are a major problem. There are lots of issues I leave to my colleagues, but the 2 problems are, first one is social inequality, and as long as this inequality exceeds, it's very hard to build a future city that caters to the needs of everyone in it. digital divide is another problem. So in a future city where it's highly reliant on the use of technologies in all your basic daily life, so if there is a huge digital divide between segments of the society, it will be very hard to enforce, maybe set up these services if a big segment of the society is not using it. So I see those two problems as two major problems that need to be addressed at the initial stages before thinking of future smart city. I could think of an example like Medellin, Colombia, where they tried to provide support for underprivileged groups through creating, supporting small businesses, creating new jobs, building infrastructure for public transportation so that this divide is minimized. So that's two problems that I could think of that should be addressed at the early stages.
Thank you. What's your take on this, Miguel?
Let's see. 5 things maybe. Going fast. The first one is what I see globally in cities, in many cases, the lack of vision. So a strategy. So how do this urban ecosystem where I'm in should look like in 10 years from now? There are many cities doing that as we speak, and many of them in the region, but there are many that haven't. The second thing is a conflict between short and longer term goals. I give you an example from last week. I was speaking with the deputy mayor for transport from a specific city. I won't tell what it is because someone may know the person, and he was telling me, Miguel, of course we have our plan of mobility, but I have the city full of holes and full of problems. If I don't solve them now, I won't get re-elected in 2 years from now, and so I won't be able to do the long-term plan. So the conflict between being re-elected and do the short-term priorities versus the long-term goals. The third thing is lack of coordination. Cities usually are organized in silos. Each department is independent from the other department, and to serve us as citizens, we need an integrated approach by the several domains of the city, from energy to transport to waste and whatever. The fourth one is data standards. Data interoperability between cities. If I have a mobility app in one city, I want to be able to use them also in another city. Standards are being built, but we didn't get there yet. And I would say the last one, and I would say Middle East is an exception, is investment. Let's see, globally we see lots of investment in infrastructure, in physical infrastructure, but to build a smart city we need to invest at scale in digital infrastructure, and that's something we don't usually see, except, as I'm saying, except in Middle East, where we have very good examples of big investments being done in digital infrastructure. Those for me are the challenges I see.
Yeah, thank you for sharing with us. What's your opinion, Karim?
So definitely when we talk about the SMEs, it's the backbone of any economy. Yeah? So the cooperation between the public entities in terms of adapting the needs of the SMEs to integrate them correctly and swiftly into the ecosystem of the smart cities is highly important. The education of the SMEs, as Exit Mena Ahella was saying, it's extremely important to ensure swift integration into the system. Yeah? That's in terms of cooperation. That being said, the policies and framework should also include the needs of the SMEs and cater for the needs of the SMEs to ensure the swift transition. On the other hand, the adaptability of the SMEs, from the SMEs side, the adaptability to digital transformation needs a little push further, especially in the Middle East. So if both adds up, this should easily integrate the process better.
Thank you. Ahela?
So actually it's interesting what Miguel was saying, the part related to the digital infrastructure and how different SMEs are across MENA. So if we're focusing just a snapshot on the MENA region, right? Startups in Egypt, for example, have a much different, if you have like a scale of who's ready to go towards being a smart city, they're different than SMEs in UAE or SMEs in KSA. So understanding the different needs of different markets and their readiness towards becoming adaptable to what's needed to build a smart city is one of the key, I think, responsibilities of governments and regulators to adapt. The second thing is SMEs, they have, as you said, much more flexibility and agility than corporations in adapting to new technologies. So they are actually kind of like the pushing framework behind, if they adapt something, it's going to spread across much wider. So helping them and assessing them to actually understand what different variables need to be adapted and how to go about doing it, that's another factor. And the third factor, I think, or the main challenge for SMEs is comes to access to financing. So in order for them to adapt these digital infrastructures and adapt these new technologies, they need to have access, the proper access to financing to help them to start the adaptation process. So that's one of the main challenges they face.
Yeah, thank you. I totally agree with you that the SMEs are much more flexible than big corporations into adoption of new technologies and different innovations. So they don't have such a long bureaucratic process as big companies. And let's talk about the certain examples how SMEs can contribute to the future development of future cities, and as well, what innovations can they offer, and what's the experience of your organizations? You already started, some of you, to present some examples, like Shadi mentioned Colombia and Miguel. So let's discuss it more, and let's start with Sahela.
Okay, so there are so many different examples of how SMEs are capable of developing new products to solve old, I'm sorry, the sound is really high, can you hear? So there's a lot of examples of how SMEs are capable of developing new products to solve old problems that are facing cities. So there was one SME that was actually, it's a startup, you could say, not an SME, and what they were doing is they developed digital technology to help combat coral reefs endangerment in the environment. So other big corporations have been trying to do this for a very long time. What they have done is developed a product that's much lower cost, much more sustainable to develop, and much more easy to scale. So one of the key points of strength that SMEs also have over corporations is their ability to develop products that are easy to scale. So this is something of one of the many cases of the startups that we've worked with that have developed a product that is not only adaptable to multiple markets around the world, but it's so easy to develop in-house and in-market, and that's why it's super costly. So,
thank you. What about you, Karim? What do you think?
So on the sustainability and renewable energy scope, there is definitely a lot to do there, and there is still work to be done. This is a sector where the SMEs can tackle heavily. We have various investments across Africa in that sense that help integrate or even provide clean and green energy solutions for the factories and the industrial sector across the city that they work in. So that's a solid example.
Thank you, Miguel.
I can give some examples of things that are happening now. I would say SMEs are totally critical. Whatever we may do in a smart city, I would say 95% of the things, or the smart things that are done in the smart and sustainable cities are done by SMEs. I can give you 3 examples of things that are happening now. One is a program that we are running in Lisbon. It's called Clean Future. And it's a bit early stages, a bit startups, but not just early stages. And the program is focused on 3 concrete areas, or three concrete problems of the city of Lisbon. One is mobility, other is the sustainable construction materials, and the third one is retail. And it's a competition between 70 SMEs from all over the world in order to solve specifically these problems. And I would say the pitches and the discussions are being held this week. This is one specific for Lisbon. Another thing, which is, I would say, at a broader scale, is a program that's called Uplink, and it's a partnership global. It was presented at Davos, so it's a partnership between the World Economic Forum, Deloitte, and Salesforce, and the purpose is to solve ESG issues in cities exactly through SMEs. The first city. The challenge is around affordable housing. The first city is San Francisco, and this is a program that is being run now and to use. Another concrete example from now is what we call the Clean Move. Clean Move is we are at Deloitte developing solutions for mobility as a service, and the technology behind those solutions is from a startup. It's from a Portuguese startup, a very small one, that is now scaling up, and we are doing a partnership for them to use our network and for us to use their technology. And it's a concrete thing of examples of things that are happening now.
I have a follow-up question for you. You mentioned ECG. So how much and to what extent SMEs follow ECG principles? Because it's mostly common like for 90% of big corporations, but I think it's much lower percentage of SMEs which implement ECG.
I don't know. Let's see. I would say in the future, the regulation around ESGs will be more. There are two things. One thing is do the right thing. And the other thing is do what you are required to do. I would say regulation will be, I would say, more and more transversal regarding the corporations following the ESGs. I would say it's much stronger on the big corporations, but it will get to us all. Let's see, there are so many SMEs, someone will follow, some others won't. One thing I could say in the opposite way is there is massive opportunities, but we may discuss that. On the ESG field for the SMEs, on the buildings, on mobility and whatever, maybe we discuss that a bit later, on where are the areas of opportunity. But I would say many follow the ESGs, many are very sustainable, many are very inclusive for the people, and many aren't. So there are so many, it's very difficult to, yeah.
Thank you. Shadi, what's your take? Can you share your examples?
I'll give the examples of the three I like. For example, Lime, which is shared scooters and bikes. This is a really big thing for a city, inside a city, organizing traffic, mobility. So this is a model that really solves problems. Another one is GridMates, which is trying to do a blockchain for peer-to-peer energy sharing for people with solar energy. And the last thing I like is about Sidewalk Labs, which is part of Google. They're parking technologies that they are developing, so robotic parking, dynamic pricing for parking, which changes based on availability and empty spots, solutions for data that can tell you what's happening with the parking, where you can park. So it really helps build a smart city. So those are like startups or companies that I like how they shape smart cities.
Thank you. And let's talk about our main topic. What are the new trends and investment tracks for the SMEs in building of the future cities? And let's start commenting with Karim.
Sure. So recently we have been seeing a lot of trends in regards to the integration of SMEs to smart cities. Yeah? So definitely e-mobility is on top of the list, and it's even rising. It's a rising trend. Renewable energies and clean and green technologies are also coming on top of the list. The urban development services is something that's picking up as well, and that's in a nutshell the top three that are that we see very frequently thus far.
Thank you. Miguel, what trends do you see?
Let's see. Areas of opportunity where there will be, I would say, big money being invested. One is on buildings area. 40% of greenhouse emissions comes from buildings, 60% on infrastructure. we will need to get to our climate objectives that we have, and it depends from country to country, from continent to continent, but 2030, 2050, whatever, we will need to do two things. One is the greenfield buildings will need to be sustainable, and sometimes they are not now. And the second thing, we will need to retrofit our buildings and infrastructure as one of the ways to make sure that we get there. So that's a big opportunity for SMEs. Second one is mobility. It was already discussed, 20% of greenhouse emissions. I see the cities all over the world changing their mobility, I would say, solutions or the way they offer that for us for go from point A to point B. Big transformation being held, but I would say but we are still starting. Third area is waste. Again, it's like around 20% of greenhouse emissions comes from waste. So everything about smart waste is another area. Other area is smart materials, construction materials, and other area is everything around circular economy. Those are areas and it's very connected to the sustainability objectives. So I would put there. If I had money, I would put there. Then the sources of money. I don't know if you want to do that. There are several, but here are people which are more experts than me. Of course, you can have public budgets. It's always a good source of money. You should leverage on regional funds. It can be or donors funds. That's something you can leverage. You can leverage on PPPs. So doing arrangements between public and private. You could leverage on global corporations like Deloitte. As I said, we are doing joint go-to-market with the SMEs, and of course then you have private equities and things like that.
Thank you. What's your comment, Shadi?
So mostly covered by Miguel, but I'll add, again, IoT, Internet of Things, and how can that trend be utilized for the benefit of SMEs. So there's lots to be done, like sensors for everything that you can do, starting from waste bins to parkings to pedestrian transportation. So there is lots to do in that aspect. Another thing is big data analytics, which can really support SMEs in what they do. So I see two opportunities in those two aspects that can be added to what has been mentioned.
Thank you. What's your take, Hela?
I don't think I have anything to add. I think the guys kind of covered it all. But yes, I do agree that there's also one thing to mention is that the variety in investment sources, as Miguel was saying, has drastically transformed and increased, especially after the pandemic, after COVID-19, with SMEs. And in regards to specific sectors like sustainability, green energy, and so on, it's becoming the latest trend in what investors are interested in to actually go into when it comes to SMEs. So yes.
Thank you. And I would add as well, like you mentioned, IoT as well. We see big trend in AI these days. I think SMEs has invested into it for many years, but now with the popularity of ChatGPT, it's became more understandable to the wider audience. And as well, of course, SMEs invest into different cybersecurity and privacy solutions. And another trend I see is green planning of the cities as well. It's quite applicable here in the UAE, where it's like 50 years ago it was just the research, and now they're trying to plant more trees and etc. to make the city green and sustainable. And the next question I would like to discuss more is how these SMEs can leverage all these different digital innovations, and specifically as Internet of Things, IoT and AI to drive the growth of the sustainable cities. So let's start with Shadi.
Okay, there is lots to do in this aspect, but maybe SMEs could leverage the cloud computing that is out there. Use everything cloud basically, because you're highly reducing costs, highly increasing security. Cloud is really supportive for them for SMEs at this stage, and there is lots that can be done and utilized through cloud. The other aspect is data analytics, which can help SMEs and the technologies now with the AI and everything. This data can really help with market, defining their markets clearly, customer behavior, market trends. So this can help SMEs in their next stages or what comes in the future. So I see those two areas as areas that can be utilized by SMEs.
Thank you. Miguel, what are your observations?
I would say SMEs, they have you can see it in two perspectives. One is they can be a mega contributor to the future of AI, to the future of IoT. That's one area. They have a critical role on building. I would say a much better data quality, a much better digital infrastructure. That's the first thing. And then, of course, it's super relevant that, of course, they leverage on the existing infrastructure. One of the things is, in order to innovate, cities are more and more opening data, and they should leverage on the SMEs should leverage on the open data in order to build solutions. Whenever we have much more interoperable data and data standards, of course, the SMEs may much easier scale up from one country to the other. These are some of the examples. But I would say they will have a super relevant role on building these new, I would say, ecosystems.
Yeah, I see you already second time mentioning the standardization of data.
Yeah.
Karim, what are your thoughts?
I also agree data and data analytics is a tool that can be very, very beneficial for SMEs, whether through identifying where is the consumers that they want to target or the behavior, the consumer behavior of the targeted groups that they want to sell for. But this can also happen with integration with government or regulatory body. They can provide this data to enable the SMEs to thrive within the smart cities framework.
Thank you, Helen.
So actually, it all draws back to the scalability part that we were talking about. So with the growth of AI, and like we're seeing so many different startups developing ever since ChatGPT came out, we've seen so many startups that are based on what ChatGPT can do, right? That's how fast they started scaling. So SMEs, on the other hand, have a much more solid and stable base than most startups. So they have a much more upper hand in adapting this type of technology and moving forward with it and scaling it. So their access to digitization and them becoming more digital through AI is, I think, one of the key elements that's going to be going through the next few years when it comes to SMEs and smart cities.
Thank you. Karim, you already commented a bit and started on the question of cooperation between the private sector and government. So let's discuss it more. How can SMEs cooperate with the governments and as well different international and local organizations to drive the growth of the future cities and sustainability?
Sure. Basically, this cooperation between SMEs and the regulatory body of the smart city or the government it will happen, but it's better to happen sooner than later to ensure fast and easy integration in a way. But the thing is, in order to do this in the right sense, you need to understand also the needs of this base of SMEs, which is not a small base at all, specifically in the MENA region and African region, but overall, this cooperation between the SMEs and the government or other private sector entities through a PPP project, this is definitely something that can turn this into a much faster pace. Yeah, the integration of technology into the governmental entities that did not really fully integrate technological arms in it, this will definitely help the SMEs to reach out even faster.
Thank you. And Hela, you have a platform for the startups and investors. So how do you see the interaction, and as well, do you have any governments participating in investments into those startups?
Yeah, sure. So the environment we work in is highly regulated in Egypt, for example. So the government has a very strong role to play because anyone can sign up onto a platform, right? It can be anyone. It can be someone saying that I own this company and I do this and that. So there needs to be multiple layers of vetting, and regulatory bodies help us with that. They help us to move through the real ones from the fake ones, and then the real ones get the support, whether it's government support, private sector support, or international body support. And this is how we kind of mix all these different potential channels to give SMEs that sign onto the platform, not just startups, this type of access to regulatory bodies that can help them develop.
Thank you. Miguel, what's your comment?
Let's see, what roles can governments have, of course, on promoting the development of the SMEs and putting the ecosystem working better? One, of course, is regulate. It's one of the things governments can do. Other thing, of course, is putting the ecosystem together. This event is a good example of the role of government on trying to bring in, also trying to bring up the role of SMEs. This specific session has that specific purpose. The governments can also help with funding, which is very relevant for the SMEs for obvious reasons. The governments can help also with training, because usually the SMEs, usually they have scarcity of resources, and so they don't have many people with lots of knowledge, so sometimes it's relevant to get some support specifically on knowledge, and the governments can also have a role on promoting, I would say, the good SMEs and the good solutions that come through SMEs. I can give you one example. This was specifically where a city, which is near me, we were talking before, which is Cascais, that they did. So they wanted to build what they call a smart health community. A smart health community is, I don't know, we may not all know, but just 20% of our health is determined by our genetics or by the quality of our health system. 80% of our health is determined by our behavior. So what they did, they said, okay, how can we incentivize the good behaviors to increase the quality of life of my people? And what they did a series of sessions with SMEs in order to bring together, I would say, people from the sports business, with education, with health, and what they decided was a series of, I say, commitments from the government involving the SMEs and developing the business of the SMEs in order to achieve that goal. It was very interesting.
Thank you for sharing with us. Shadi, what's your comment on cooperation between private sector and governments?
I think everything is covered. I could think of, again, public-private partnership, whatever that would be other than what has been mentioned, but basically more cooperation between the public and the private sector in the design and implementation of new projects. Tax incentives for SMEs or early-stage startups that want to do anything futuristic can be provided. So advocating for policy shifts, tax incentives, this could also be beneficial when cooperating with the government.
And another question I would like to discuss is the accessibility and affordability for the whole community of different services and innovations of SMEs. So how can SMEs ensure that the innovations are accessible to the unprivileged groups? What's your take, Shadi?
Well, it should all start before developing a service or a product, is to do the proper research to make sure that those underprivileged groups' needs are taken into consideration, whether that be people with special needs or certain segments of the society. So I think proper research should be done at the early stage. Another thing that could make sure that they are included in future services is providing some sort of financial support or coverage for additional costs or subsidiaries for certain services. So maybe those two ideas can be related.
Thank you. So research, initial research on your side. Miguel, what are your thoughts?
I would say it all starts at the beginning, as was said. So on the design of the service, you should do citizen-centric service design. So and it's SMEs and also governments. So as long as when you design the service, you design for your citizens or clients or whatever, you just need to identify who they are. If they are all digitally developed, it's for the digitally developed. If there is a range of people, which some of them are digital inclusive and others are not so proficient digitally, you need to design the service for both. So for me, citizen service design, and do it well.
Thank you, Karim.
But adding to what both of you guys said, funding definitely plays a huge role, yeah? And FDIs have played a role in the inclusivity of underprivileged group and still playing a strong role in this. For example, for projects that have an inclusivity aspect for underprivileged group within IFE, we give them bonus points when we rate when we assess the case. Yeah? This gives them even a better probability of a successful attainability for the grant facility. So this is basically also one of the very aspects, because it's directly related to financing. Yeah? So it's one of the aspects that can drive them towards reaching or providing the service to the underprivileged.
Thank you. Hela, how do you see this?
I actually think one of the key things SMEs need to do when it comes to underprivileged audiences is the customization, the ability to have a product or a service that's customizable to fit any type of audience, while at the same time reaching the goal that you want to reach or the revenues that you want to reach and so on. And high customization is actually one of the key attractive elements in SMEs to investors, is their ability to customize, which is not seen throughout the MENA region at the moment. People are still trying to adapt to this customization element. So I think this is one of the key elements that can be adapted by SMEs for underprivileged audiences.
Thank you. And let's discuss as well, again, some practical examples of the countries building smart cities, and in which regions do you see the most developments? Like Miguel, you mentioned as well Portugal, Cascais smart city, but as well before we discussed with you some developments in Saudi Arabia and here in the UAE. So can you tell more about these and what developments do you see, what's happening?
Yeah. Sometimes I'm asked, what is the smartest city in the world, something like that. And there's not, I would say, a straight answer for that. Some examples of cities that take very seriously, I wouldn't say the smartest, let's see, what is one concept of a smart city? Is using technology to make us happier, to make sure that we leave some environment for the future generations, and make sure also that our corporations are financially healthy, so the economic development, and using technology for that. One city which is very well organized, of course, is Singapore. Singapore is one example, but it's a very top-down. It's a top-down approach, but it's super well organized, using technology for all of these purposes. If you go to Amsterdam, it's an ecosystem of innovation which is very developed, very nice. If we go Copenhagen, and I was there like 3 weeks ago, having discussions with the municipality leaders, they ranked, I would say, top 3 in all the indexes on sustainability and smartness. They are very focused on sustainability. So if we want to think sustainability, we think Copenhagen. If we want to see integration, we go Cascais. And as I was involved, it's one example I always give, because it's massive what they are doing regarding integration of data and so on and so on. And if we want to see I would say the next big thing we go NEOM, because NEOM is everything. It's a city of the size of Belgium being built from scratch, and things are really happening now. And what's being done there, on the discussions that we consultants have with them, they say we don't want you to bring any example from anywhere, because we are building the new example for the world. And that's, I would say it will be the smartest, let's call it one of the smartest. There are many examples. So.
Yeah, and NEOM has the biggest funding in the world for the building that. Karima, you are from Egypt, and you as well talked that there are only steps taken to the building of the smart cities. So can you tell more about this, and what other countries do you see are innovative in the building of smart cities?
Absolutely. So Egypt has definitely started taking serious steps towards digitization of the government. We are now in the implementation phase of the digitization for the governmental services for the citizens, and not only the infrastructure. So we are now at the second stage, which is the citizen utilization of this digitization. We are also slowly but surely adapting or trying to adapt the e-mobility sector. We have recently funded a project that focuses on e-mobility manufacturing, and on the side also on creating good calibers that can work in the manufacturing arm of the e-mobility, not just to create the project and then without being serviced. Renewable energy is something that is, as I said, hyped up in Egypt for several years now, and it's still growing. That's 3 pointers.
Thank you. Hela, what are your observations? You as well from Egypt.
I think they've mentioned all the cities by now, so they spoke about Egypt. So yes, I think NEOM definitely is very exciting. We were talking about it earlier outside. I think that's the star or the spotlight when it comes to smart cities and what's going to be happening over the next few years. Other markets like Egypt, of course, is starting to get very serious steps, as mentioned earlier. And I think for SMEs specifically in Egypt, they're seeing a huge transformation when it comes to adapting, because for example, the Egyptian government, they removed all forms of paper-based invoices and accounting and so on, and taxations, to move it towards digital. So that one step that happened, I think it was a few years back. At first it was a shock to a lot of the SMEs on ground, to be honest, because they felt that they were being extra tracked because of all the digital invoices. And now, because of all the educational awareness of why this is a step towards the ultimate goal of having more smarter cities, they are starting to adapt towards the new changes being present. So some cities are more advanced, others are getting there step by step.
Thank you. And Shadi, what are your thoughts?
Nothing much to add, no more well, there is the typical heroes, again, Singapore, NEOM, Amsterdam. So those are the cities that are moving or have moved already very fast. But then I see that any city that is taking up, doing green spaces, doing cycling, biking areas, it's moving towards smart, electric driving, carbon-free zones. So those are cities that are moving towards that trend. Other than the ones mentioned, I see that this will continue and will expand to future cities. But I can't think of other examples than the ones mentioned by my colleagues.
Thank you. And let's as well discuss the final question. What are the most successful examples of SMEs implementing different digital innovations, and what lessons can be learned from that? So let's start with Shadi.
SMEs, lessons learned by them. Okay. So again, 2 examples are like Parkwiz, which is you book your parking spot in advance. It's really a nice business model. It reduces traffic. It helps you organize life in a smart city. And the way that they benefited from data analytics and to know more live data and insights has helped them develop their business models. So the importance of data analytics. Another example is the one I mentioned earlier, which is Lime for scooters and bikes. And then the lesson learned is that how they used, developed their algorithms where they were capable of developing their models so that the distribution channels or where their scooters and devices are available using algorithms was way enhanced and way modified to meet the needs in the local cities. So yeah, algorithms and data analysis.
Thank you. Miguel, what are examples from your side?
I can remember two SMEs. One is called Ubi Rider, and the other one is called Compta. So Ubi Rider, they managed with not that much capital, as I was saying, to develop, I would say, very good mobility as a service solution that we are globalizing, and we've seen many solutions from all over the world, and it's a very small company. The other one is Compta. Compta is also a medium enterprise that develops solutions for smart waste, and now they are completely globalized, and they are being used all over the world as one of the relevant solutions for smart waste. But there are so many examples.
Yeah, of course. Karim, what's your examples?
So definitely the financing institutions has been leveraging on the data for quite some time now. But there is a company in mind specifically. It's a factory, more specifically a cement factory. So carbon emissions and the not so clean and waste exertions from this factory. Nevertheless, this facility relies by 80%, and it's in Egypt. It relies by 80% on clean and green energy. Yeah? And for the other 20%, it relies on renewable waste. So basically, it runs completely on clean energy. They have integrated such technologies in their chimneys and so on for filtration purposes, and the emissions were reduced by 80%. It's a globally recognized company and awarded in terms of cleanness in this specific industry that is very hard to do something like this. This is a very innovative project, and it's super interesting, and now it's becoming like a major corporation in Egypt.
What countries do you see mostly implementing clean energy solutions, and which other countries should follow them?
Well, speaking of Lyon will definitely be one of the countries that will have very big energy solutions for everyone, basically, and for the cities, there. But also many countries in Europe, they implement energy solutions or clean energy solutions for both industrial sectors and residents. You know? So that's in a nutshell, but no country in specific in mind.
Okay, thank you. And what examples can you name, Ahela?
Yeah, so we have one actually in Egypt, and it turned into a startup after that. I guess it's not an SME anymore, but and it became a unicorn. It's called Fawri in Egypt. So Fawri, with startups that usually turn into unicorns or SMEs that grow to no longer become SMEs, they provide a disruptive solution in the market, right? Something that solves the problem that most people need solved. So what Fawri did is they started by helping citizens pay all the many different possible bills electronically that they could pay. So their mobiles, their gas bills, their electricity, and then they later developed where you can transfer money from account to account to send to someone. And then they started working on corporations, right? So now corporations or small SMEs kiosks can pay their bills as well. So it's not just direct audiences. So something like that, or examples like this that have started off in Egypt as a very small idea and then grew into a huge unicorn and they IPO'd later on, is what I feel we need more examples of in the region.
Yeah, that's quite interesting and good to see that there are even unicorns in that space. And thank you for discussion. And maybe we have any questions from the audience. You can raise your hand and ask the question. Yeah, please.
Hi, thank you to the panel for a lovely discussion. I had a basic question on an SME. I know it stands for small medium enterprises. How do you define it? Is it in revenue? Is it in number of people? Any definition to SME? When do you become from an SME to a larger corporation?
I can actually comment on that question. In general practice, it's like in EU as well in Ukraine, where I'm from, the smaller enterprises are enterprises with a turnover under $10 million and with up to 50 employees, and medium enterprises have turnover up to 50 million euro.
So $10 million is small enterprise,
yes,
and medium is up to $50 million.
Yes.
So anything beyond $50 million is a large corporation.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's what is defined in Ukraine, yeah?
In Ukraine and as well in EU.
In Europe, yeah?
Yeah.
Sorry, and just a quick question to Miguel. Miguel spoke about the NEOM city in Saudi Arabia. Yeah. And so to our understanding, it is still at a conceptual level, you know. Is there some construction which has started happening in that city?
Yes.
And to our understanding, it's more for consultants now rather than operators. Do I understand that correctly?
No, I would say it's happening now with lots of strength. So let's see. Of course, the consultants are involved because you need to design the things, then you need to implement the technology and so on. But the construction companies are there. If you go to the ground, you cannot imagine the amount of trucks, the amount of things that are being built as we speak. So they are really building the line. The line, as you know, so there are 200 kilometers of a big building in front of the seats being built as we speak. They are building Oxagon. Oxagon will be the new industrial city, and they are building it. And when I say building, it's infrastructure is being built. The water is being pumped. The energy companies are there. Hospitals are being built. Hotels are being built. We have been involved in the design and PMO, let's call it, like the program management of some implementation, us and many other consultants, as you may imagine. But it's really being done.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. And another note on that, and it's really impressive. It's really impressive, the disruption that is being made. I would say it's for a person that would like to do something very nice on their life and do something, I would say, once in a lifetime opportunity is to be involved in the design of that thing, because it's something that has never really been built.
So is this like what?
So the junior consultants of our teams, they are very happy of being involved in the NEOM project, and some of them are being recruited by NEOM. The Deloittes of this world are now being recruited by NEOM because they need people, and then they go.
So is there opportunity for SMEs as well there? Because
yeah. They have living labs. They are creating innovation ecosystems.
Everyone, there's an opportunity.
Everyone,
and they want to do it mind-blowing.
So something like what Dubai was 25 years back, or maybe more than that, yeah?
I think more than that.
More than that.
Thank you.
We have, it seems, one more question.
Thank you. Do you see application of blockchain technology in the supply chain of smart cities or semi-business environment? If yes, and what use cases do you see?
Yeah, I see that the implementation, but I would say it's not really on such a big level. Some big corporations implement blockchain somehow for that, but as we mentioned, like they have quite a bureaucratical process, and there are some smaller startups trying to do that, but I would say it's more relates to different manufacturers, so like food supply chains or gold, etc.
Okay.
Anybody else wants to comment on this question? Thank you. Do we have any more questions? So that's it. Okay, thank you everybody for the great discussion, and hope we'll see more successful examples of SMEs adopting different environmental, social and governance practices to drive the growth of sustainable future cities.
Thank you.
Thank you.